In 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower said that peace without justice is no peace at all. What he meant was simple. If you let someone get away with aggression, they'll do it again. Today, as the United States pushes new efforts to slow or freeze the war between Russia and Ukraine, we're facing the same problem. Are these efforts honest attempts to end the fighting, or are they a basically softer form of giving into Russia? So will the peace efforts by the US be seen as genuine or as appeasement? And the answer is that they will be most likely seen as appeasement, because the US is pulling back on long-term support, allowing Russia to possibly keep land it took, and focusing more on short-term calmness rather than on a fair and lasting peace. To explain this, I'll first show how the US is stepping back, then why the peace plans reward Russia, and then how our allies see it, and finally how all of this affects the regular people. For peace talks to look serious, the US has to show that it's willing to stick with Ukraine for the long haul. But for the past 2 years, we've seen quite the opposite. Politico reported in April of 2025 that both Republicans and Democrats have grown tired of giving what they call blank check funding to Ukraine. This slowed down weapon shipments and made our support look shaky. The New York Times wrote in December of 2024 that US intelligence believes that Ukraine is unlikely to win back big areas of land, and that idea is already shaping the Biden and Trump administration's push for negotiations instead of helping Ukraine keep fighting. On top of that, debates in the Congress about America's first budgeting make people wonder if the US wants to stay involved, and the Council on Foreign Relations pointed out that Russia sees hesitation not as kindness, but as weakness. So if the US really wanted strong peace, we would keep pressure on Russia while talking. Instead, we are cutting support and pushing for talks at the same time, and that looks like giving in. Even if the US had perfect messaging, the actual peace ideas on the table still give Russia rewards. Reuters reported in November of 2024 that US diplomats privately admit that any realistic peace deal might let Russia keep parts of land like Crimea. The Economist wrote in 2025 that Washington seems ready to accept a frozen conflict, which is just a fancy way of saying Russia keeps the land for now. But freezing the war is exactly what Russia wants. We've seen this before in Georgia in 2008, in Crimea in 2014, and in Syria for years. Russia starts a fight, takes the territory, waits for the world to get tired, and then keeps what it took. As long as that strategy works, Russia will keep using it. So if US peace efforts let Russia hold onto land, the world will not see it as honest peace. They will see it as the biggest territorial reward for aggression in Europe since World War II. And once borders can be changed by force, the whole region becomes less safe. Other countries see this too, and their reactions make the appeasement label even stronger. BBC reported in 2025 showing that Poland, the Baltic states, and Czech Republic are all warning that pushing Ukraine into a quick ceasefire will only embolden Russia. Those countries live closest to Russia and they know what it means to deal with its actions. NATO's Strategic Communication Center wrote in 2025 that divisions in the West already weaken deterrence and open the door for Russia to test how far it can go. And in December of 2024, the US Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell told Euronews that any ceasefire without Russian withdrawal would not be peace, it would be surrender. And when that many allies call US's plan to surrender, the world listens. To Ukraine, a ceasefire without getting their territory back is completely unfair. And to Russia, it just feels like confirmation that aggression works. And to Europe, it looks like America is choosing a quick fix rather than a fair outcome. And that's why people see US diplomacy as appeasement rather than real conflict solving. For the everyday people, these choices have real and personal impacts. For civilians living in areas Russia controls, a frozen conflict means staying under Russian control for who knows how long. Amnesty International reported in 2024 that people in these regions face forced conscription, arrests, and even forced relocation. Families are separated by the front lines, may stay apart for years. For regular Russians, a ceasefire that rewards land grabs only boosts Vladimir Putin's message that force is the only way to win, which leads to more propaganda and less freedom at home. For Americans, even though stopping aid might save money in the short term, the long term costs are high. Brookings reported in 2024 that letting Russia get away with this could force the US to spend more on defense later, raise energy prices, and make the world less stable, which hurts both American workers and families. So Eisenhower's warning still upholds today. Peace without justice isn't real peace. And right now, as the US tries to push both Russia and Ukraine towards a negotiation, the world is asking whether America is acting from strength or from exhaustion. Because the US is stepping back, letting Russia keep land, and focusing on short-term quiet instead of long-term fairness. And until the US pairs talk with pressure and peace with justice, this war won't truly end. It will only pause. Thank you.